Resuming debate, reprise du débat, the honourable member for Scarborough Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I haven't had the opportunity to speak at length in this place for some time, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to rise today on Bill C-97 and to speak to some of the initiatives in our government's budget that are going to make a difference for my constituents in Scarborough Centre. This is our government's fourth budget, Mr. Speaker, and it is the continuation of the plan that Canadians voted for in 2015, a plan that is working. Back in 2015, Canadians had a choice between conservative and NDP plans for austerity and cuts, and a Liberal plan for investing in growing the middle class and those working hard to join it. Canadians choose to invest in our future, and their decision is paying off. Today, Canada's economy is one of the fastest growing in the G7. Since 2015, Canadians have created more than 900,000 new jobs. And thanks to the middle class tax cut and the tax-free Canada Child Benefit, Canadian families have more money in their pockets to help make ends meet. But we recognize that our work is not yet done. Mr. Speaker, we need to ensure that all Canadians share in the growing prosperity. That means being able to find an affordable place to live, getting the skills to find a well-paying job, being able to retire with confidence. That's why it's important we don't allow the clock to be turned back to the Harper era, and that we keep investing in Canadians and in our future. Before I get to some of those investments, allow me to touch on another area of focus in Budget 2019, keeping Canadians safe from violence and hate. Canadians of all backgrounds and identities should always feel safe to gather together. Unfortunately, as recent tragic events have demonstrated, certain groups of people, because of their race, religion, or sexual orientation, are at risk of being targeted by hate-motivated crimes, threatening their safety and security and the gathering places they enjoy. To help, community gathering spaces such as schools, community centers, and places of worship make needed security improvements, we are doubling the annual funding for the Security Infrastructure Program from $2 million per year to $4 million per year. Several faith organizations in Scarborough Centre have already leveraged this program to upgrade their security infrastructure, and I encourage all eligible institutions to take advantage of this program. We all know that diversity is one of Canada's strengths, but sadly, we know that Canada is not immune to the effects of hateful rhetoric. That's why Budget 2019 invests $45 million to support a new anti-racism strategy. It will work to find ways to counter racism in its various forms with a strong focus on community-based projects. While we cannot be blind to the threats, Mr. Speaker, I know most of my fellow Canadians are a warm and welcoming people that reject fear, racism, and division. What unites us all, Mr. Speaker, is our shared desire to provide opportunity for our families, and this budget makes a number of important investments in that regard. Perhaps the biggest issue I hear about at the doors in Scarborough is about housing. Buying a home is increasingly out of reach for the average family, and rental housing is often outdated, overpriced, and inadequate to the needs of many families. Everyone deserves a safe and affordable place to live, but in Greater Toronto Area, too many are being priced out of the market. The Harper government did nothing to address the housing affordability for 10 years. They were missing in action, leaving the provinces, the municipalities, and the community organizations to try to pick up the slack. But with our 10-year, $40 billion national housing strategy, the federal government is finally back at the table when it comes to housing. I had the opportunity to join the Prime Minister and the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development in Scarborough, where our government committed $1.3 billion to help repair and renovate more than 58,000 Toronto community housing units. This will allow for long-delayed repairs to be completed and will improve the quality of life for thousands of Toronto families. And we are building on these investments in Budget 2019. The new first-time home buyer incentive will make home ownership more affordable for first-time home buyers and allow them to lower their monthly mortgages. On a newly built $400,000 home, this new incentive would save an eligible home buyer up to $40,000 or 10% of the total cost. We expect as many as 100,000 Canadians could benefit from this program over the next 3 years, putting the dream of home ownership back within reach. I've spoken with independent experts in the real estate industry who tell me this program will mean more families will be able to enter the housing market, especially younger families just starting out. Families like Samir Ahmed in my riding, whose wife and 3 children are crammed today in a 2-bedroom apartment, they can now dream of a home in which their family has the room to grow and thrive. And the more flexible home buyers plan will let Canadians borrow an additional $10,000 from their RRSPs, raising the limit to $35,000, providing more flexibility for Canadians. For Canadians looking to rent rather than buy, increased funding for rental construction finance initiative means 42,500 new rental units across Canada. It's so important that we build capacity in the rental housing market where supply far outstrips demand and much of the existing supply increasingly old and out of date. I'm also excited about the Canada Training Benefit. It is an initiative very similar to one brought as a policy to last spring's Liberal Policy Convention developed by a group of youth in my riding. And it addressed a challenge identified by many of their peers, the challenge of lifelong learning and reskilling for an ever-changing economy throughout our lives. To ensure Canadians have the skills they need to get the well-paying jobs of the new economy, we are introducing the Canada Training Benefit. Canadians earning less than $150,000 can accumulate up to $5,000 tax-free over their lives at a rate of $250 per year. To help with the cost of enrolling in a training program, every 4 years, they can take up to 4 weeks of training to upgrade their skills and progress in their careers. With the EI Training Support Benefit, they will get help with living expenses while on training leave. And new leave provisions will make sure their jobs are safe. While Canadians will need to supplement these resources with their own, this program will make it much easier for Canadian workers to invest in their careers and in themselves. Speaking of young Canadians, Mr. Speaker, we are helping our youth get ahead by lowering interest rates for student loans, saving the average borrower $2,000. We are also making the 6-month grace period after graduation interest-free. And if you temporarily leave your studies to have a child or deal with the health issues, that period is now interest-free too. And we are helping students gain real-world experience by creating up to 40,000 annual new work placements and another 44,000 work-integrated work opportunities for Canadian students. And while the Conservatives were only focused on pushing back the age of retirement, we are committed to supporting our seniors, and with this budget, we are making their lives more affordable. We are making sure that working seniors can keep more of their hard-earned income by enhancing the Guaranteed Income Supplement earnings exemption. We are increasing the earnings exemption from $3,500 to $5,000, extending the exemption to include self-employment income, and introducing a 50% exemption in income between $5,000 and $15,000. To fight social isolation and help seniors stay active and engaged in the community, we are increasing funding for the New Horizons for Seniors program. This program funds community-based projects designed to meet the needs of local seniors. I have seen firsthand in Scarborough the benefits of this program brings to local seniors. For example, the Sheshimi Foundation is using a New Horizon grant to familiarize seniors with the technology and help arm them with valuable financial literacy skills. As I said earlier, Mr. Speaker, our plan is working. I know this because since 2015, 825,000 Canadians have been lifted out of poverty, and Canada's poverty rate has dropped by more than 20%. And As I also said earlier, there is still more work to do. That's why we have launched Canada's first ever poverty reduction strategy. Under this strategy, we are setting poverty reduction targets and entrenching Canada's official poverty line and the National Advisory Council into law. Mr. Speaker, I could go on and on about the positive elements in this Budget Implementation Act. Instead, let me just say I am proud to be part of a government that is investing in Canadians, because truly there can be no better bet than to bet on Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In comments, questions et commentaires, the honourable member for